we know when the mitochondria is damaged, what they now call mitochondrial dysfunction, that's now been linked to pretty much every major illness out there: obesity, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease. So our goal is to maintain, have a healthy mitochondria, and then help it recycle itself and be the best, have the best mitochondria you can have.
What if I told you that the same mindset that builds championship teams also builds an extraordinary life? The same discipline that drives elite performance to greatness is the discipline that unlocks a longer, stronger, and more resilient future. This is where peak health meets peak performance, where we explore the science of longevity and the mindset of greatness. Because your legacy isn't just what you leave behind, it's what you show up with every single day. This is the Legacy and Longevity Podcast. I'm Zach Dancel, your host. Welcome back to the Legacy and Longevity Podcast, where we're not just talking about living longer, we're talking about how we can live stronger, sharper, and with purpose. And today we have one of the most well-respected names in longevity medicine, very big into the peptides, even before peptides became a craze. Dr. Neil Paulvin, is behind the scenes doctor with high performers up in Manhattan, New York, CEOs, professional athletes. He's a board certified physician in integrative regenerative medicine and a pioneer in mitochondrial repair. Like I said, he was an early adopter into peptides and a leader who has helped shape, that space in the longevity movement. And what I really like most about today's episode, he doesn't just study the science, right? He's able to help translate how it can impact the systems and how protocols can help anyone use to, help reverse, biological aging and help just optimize overall health and performance. So Dr. Neil Paulvin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
No, of course. So, first off, before we, dive deep in, you're one of the rare people in the space who, I think you're able to blend the science and performance and practical frameworks to, make it easy for people to, really understand concepts. And just obviously the longevity space is a craze, but it's still very new, right? So for people who might be new to your work, how do you describe what you do and why you've dedicated your life to longevity medicine?
I describe what I do is, kind of hit on is, I now blend preventative and curative medicine, being we try to prevent illness as much as we can, help patients live their best healthy health span as they can. And if we do have an illness, that we can treat it with the newest in technology, medicine, alternative things, technology, all combined. And that's really what the goal is. And also, like you said, is try to be a tour guide and to explain to patients who sometimes like the shiny new toy or just like learning what's new, is what has value in terms of the treatments out there and what is kind of not worth it.
Yeah. No, so let's set the foundation, right? Like mitochondrial health. It's a topic that's been around forever, right? But for now, like right now, a lot of people are talking about and emphasizing mitochondrial health and cellular health. Obviously, most people understand that mitochondria, the powerhouse to our cells, where it's producing ATP and energy. Um, you know, if you had 30 seconds to explain truly what mitochondria is, to the world, why is that, or why should it be the centerpiece to health, performance, and just preventative medicine?
I mean, it's definitely one of the bigger pieces of the puzzle, in the sense because, like you said, mitochondria is enabling your body to have energy. I mean, that's definitely the main component of it. It produces ATP, it propels the electrons through the system. So if that's not working, a lot of the other things don't work. And then also helps with calcium metabolism and homeostasis. It helps us with maintaining the kind of the electrical balance of the whole system. I mean, our body is kind of like a bunch of wires and circuits and things like that. So if we're too positive, too negative, or don't have or in the right status, then that can affect our health. We know when the mitochondria is damaged, what they now call mitochondrial dysfunction, that's now been linked to pretty much every major illness out there: obesity, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease. So our goal is to maintain, have a healthy mitochondria, and then help it recycle itself and be the best, have the best mitochondria you can have. So it's having a good one when it's working, but you also want to make sure that your body's able to change it out when it needs to be changed out, because we don't use the same. Again, it's not, you don't just have one your whole life.
Obviously, a lot of people tie the connection with mitochondria to energy, but obviously, they, like you just said, they do much more, right? They can, if they're weak, they can increase inflammation and disrupt your hormones and things like that. What would you say that are the biggest modern lifestyle factors that you see destroying mitochondrial function?
I mean, there's a couple. I mean, there's definitely stress, inflammation, oxidative stress, toxins are probably the big three or four that I can think of off the top of my head. Plus, nutrition deficiencies. Those are probably the big ones, because you need like things like glutathione and NAD and B and vitamin C and other vitamins and nutrients to help the magnesium to help the mitochondria work.
When working with someone to focus on their, rebuilding their mitochondrial health, or who might have mitochondrial dysfunction, where do you start, and what are some of the levers that you tend to use to help with that?
I mean, it's a two-piece part of the puzzle. You need to start rebuilding it and fixing it with more general things, and then two, you also need to do a dive into what's actually causing the problem.
Would you say that a lot of people are talking about how the mitochondria can be trainable? Is there things like zone 2 cardio and strength training, fasting, or any of those levers that you're like using on a daily basis to help with the interventions?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, exercise in general. Some people will say zone two will maximize the number of mitochondria more. So that's definitely could be helpful. Sleep, avoiding toxins. Um, those are in terms of lifestyle things, and avoiding inflammatory things, which again would be stress or eating toxins in your food and things like that. Those are the main in terms of lifestyle. Adding some sort of what we call hormesis or stress to the body can be helpful. It can be a balance to make sure that your body can withstand that. A lot of people love doing like cold plunges for a longer period of time. We know that may help boost your mitochondrial number, but also may limit your muscle building and inflammation. And then you're actually potentially robbing Peter to pay Paul, or have to find that happy balance of building mitochondria, but also not affecting the muscle, which is one of the more important things. Also, in terms of maintaining your health. So it's a delicate dance sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's like a double-edged sword. I think, one of the things that I've spoken open about is just the daily cold plunge trend is just I think it's in moderation, sure, here and there, right? But the impact that it can have on overloading the nervous system, or stunting any sort of muscle growth or repair, that you're trying to, because obviously muscles can are the longevity organ, right? So it is that double edged sword that you kind of have to figure out, when is it too much versus when is it too little.
Exactly.
So obviously, one of the big topics that a lot of people are talking about are peptides, which it's a very exciting time in our space because of some of the abilities and the power. But for those who really don't know, or might not have heard, how do you explain peptides in a way to people to understand, of these potential powerhouse tools that we have?
I mean, I explained it. I mean, they're small proteins, they're small groups of amino acids that work either on a hormone or in an organ, or work on a specific enzyme to achieve a function, either blocking it or activating it, or bringing the right cells to perform an action. So they work all differently. They come in injections and pills and creams and nose sprays. So they come in a lot of different forms. Injections are usually the strongest form that's out there. Um, and the ways I kind of explain it to people is usually about six buckets, which is the inflammation, muscle building, the gut health, brain health, the anti-aging, like mitochondrial peptides. Then you have the what I kind of call the vanity space, which is the weight loss, hair, and skin. And then you have kind of like the miscellaneous bucket.
Yeah. So since we were just talking about mitochondrial health, right? Let's talk about, the peptides that you're seeing most in those areas. I'm assuming it's things like MOTS-c. What are you seeing clinically in terms of, just the outcomes that you're seeing with your clients? And are there any other peptides that you would put in that mitochondrial bucket?
I mean, there's really three. There's Montc, there's SS31, and there's Humana. And those are really the three that we use. I mean, a lot of other things may affect the mitochondria, but those are like the three go-tos that we use.
And when would it be the right time for someone to think about, starting one of those peptides?
I mean, honestly, in a vacuum, a lot of the situations that we see, because they're going to fit in almost any scenario, be it the weight loss or energy or heart health or brain health or even like sports. I mean, they kind of fit in almost every one of them. They can be a little bit costly, so not everybody does them. That's going to be I have two month old. And that's also going, but the cost is always going to affect which ones people get.
And then going into like the recovery and inflammation as well as like the gut health, the one that I personally have the most experience with, I've kind of toyed around with all of them would be like the BPC and TB 500, which, personally, just the repair that I saw was, so just my background, right? I was a college athlete, played, the Division One football, had the opportunity to go out to Green Bay for the rookie mini camp. Didn't work out, but just being at that level, I was used to. Luckily, I never tore anything or broke anything, but just being injured or pulling a muscle and pulling a hamstring. And after getting out, I came into this world of peptides and just saw that something like BPC. I mean, it almost sped up my recovery time in half from a hamstring pull. So, why would you say that the two peptides like the BPC? I'm not sure if you use them combined with the TB 500, or if you just prefer the plain BPC 157. But you know, why are these peptides working so well together, and how are they able to accelerate the tissue repair and gut healing?
I mean, there's three or four that we tend to use for muscle tendon repair or injury repair. BPC, TB4, GHK copper, the growth hormone peptide, and sometimes we'll even use KPV. Um, they do work better than individual, but when you do that, you're technically increasing your risk of side effects. The cost goes up. So it really depends on the goals of the patient, what the injury or what the injury is. Like I said before, what your budget is going to really affect certain things. So I mean, it's all of the above. So I tend to in a vacuum. I usually start with BBC and TB4 as kind of my starter point, and they work because they work on different ways. They're going to open up, they lower the inflammatory chemicals. They're going to bring the cells that you need to help heal the muscle faster and heal the muscle faster. They are going to increase nitric oxide to get again more blood flow, get more healing factors to the system. They're antioxidants, so they do a lot of different things in one in kind of one bundle, which is great. That's why I love peptides in general because they do a lot of things at one time. It's not just one
Yeah.
pathway. You have multiple pathways to help you at the same time.
And to your point, right? I'm sure you see this all the time. We've had clients who are doing injections with BPC for gut health, but notice that their shoulder achiness and pain that they typically have every morning started going away. And it just kind of rolls into the what you were just saying, right? These signaling messengers that they have the ability to do so much throughout the body. Um, but one thing I did want to hit on is in this recovery and inflammation peptides. You brought up GHK and copper, right? Where a lot of people think that as, or at least it's being referred to a lot as the beauty peptide. And obviously it does a lot more. Um, how is the GHK and copper being used for recovery for inflammation for those who only are thinking of it as a beauty peptide and how it can do much more than that.
It works in a lot of different ways. Again, it works to boost elastin and collagen, which is why it helps skin, but also helps in general. It's an antioxidant. It's anti-inflammatory. It works on certain stem cells, work on cells, healing cells throughout the body. So it works in a lot of different ways to help. The only downside, a lot of times, the injections people find will burn. So they may not be a fan of that, but otherwise, they again, same answer. A lot of the peptides work in multiple mechanisms, and if you stack them, then you have multiple mechanism times three, and it's even better.
Right. Yeah. And would you put that in the same bucket with, the metabolic peptides? Obviously, everyone knows GLP-1s, right? But then there's also, tesamorelin and CJC and ipamorelin. From that perspective, what role do you see, the GH and IGF peptides, playing a role in improving body composition?
I mean, GH, you mean G? Okay, so you just mean the growth hormone peptides, not GHK.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, in turn, so I put I mean the growth hormone peptides are kind of a hybrid there because they're going to help with inflammation, they help with muscle building, they help with sleep. In some cases, they can help with the insulin management, and just by building muscle, you're going to lose weight. So they are can be helpful. Now there's so many other. They were used a lot more, at least in my practice, a lot of other doctors' practices before the advent of the GLP-1, some other things that have come out recently. So now it's like because these meds you only use for 2 or 3 months, and they may or may not help you lose muscle. Some people think they're the best thing ever, lose weight. Other people say they don't do anything. So again, before the GLP-1s, they were like top 2 or 3. Now they're just so far down the list in terms of weight loss. Um, but they still have all their other benefits that are still there.
Yeah. And I think that's with the GLP-1s, I think the biggest worry that a lot of people have, and obviously a lot of providers and physicians and just practitioners overall, is the impact that people could possibly have with the loss of muscle, right? Because, we're we're in such a sedentary lifestyle these days, whether it's sitting behind a desk or, just not getting up and being as active. I think that's kind of where some of these peptides, can really come into play to help, counteract if someone is on a GLP, or just, doing, the logical thing of, while being on these peptides, not just while on the peptides or the GLPs, is just getting movement, right? Regular exercise. Um, have you had any experience with retatrutide?
A little bit. It's hard to get quality stuff at this point. So, I mean, as we're speaking today, a new study just came out showing how powerful it is, and how generally powerful. I mean, it loses like 20% of your body weight at max. It also is going to help lower your cholesterol and lower your CRP, which is inflammation, and it can lower your blood pressure. So there's so many different things. It does have some side effects, but also maybe more muscle saving than the rest. We have to see on that specifically. So there's definitely a huge potential. I think somehow we've now kind of put people. I mean, and if you think about it in actuality, there's retatrutide is not available, and I mean you can't get it at the pharmacy. Like when people were getting compounded Zepbound or Ozempic, some semaglutide, it was already out and it was just being copied. So now people are clamoring and try to find a version anywhere of medicine that doesn't even exist in the pharmacy yet. So it does lead to some kind of scams and misleading things and harm potentially. I think when the prescription does come out, hopefully early 26, then it's going to be amazing in terms of people are going to switch to that in a lot of cases over the other ones. But it is the strongest, and I think the strongest is going to have more side effects than some of the other medications. But people, again, this because it has so many new benefits to it, that may be worth it.
And can you talk about the difference between the different GLPs, between semaglutide, tirzepatide, and what they're now saying, retatrutide acts on three different.
GLP-1s obviously just work on GLP in the gut. GLP and GIP, which is the Mounjaro and Zepbound, helps two different mechanisms to balance your insulin and to help you lose weight as long as the other, in addition to the other benefits like anti-inflammatory and mood and things like that. And you may get less side effects from it. And then you have the retatrutide, which is those two now with work on the glucagon receptor, which helps you burn energy faster on top of the other pathways. And then on top of that, you may get some liver and cholesterol health, which is obviously also good for your overall health. Excuse me. So it's like the slice. It's like a snowball effect, or it's like kind of the layers of a cake where you keep building and building and building.
Yeah. No, man, I think this space is growing so fast, and it's super fascinating with just the abilities that some of these things have. But I think one thing that you mentioned earlier, right, that I think is super important for people to understand, because peptides aren't all peptides aren't necessarily FDA approved yet, and retatrutide's not FDA approved. There's a huge black market out there, right? Where obviously it's not being regulated. You don't know what you're getting, whether it's being compounded in the US or overseas. Um, what would you say, what is the best approach for someone who might be interested in getting started on some of these peptides and interested in learning more about how to do it properly and safely?
And right now, I would definitely say work with a educated healthcare provider who knows the ins and outs of all three, because there's a lot of terms and a lot of people giving treatment protocols who are not physicians, who really, it's not like have no health background really. And they're saying they're just, again, they're talking about retatrutide or even some of the newer ones that may not never come out, something called bioclutide and all these other ones that may have failed studies and may never come out, but promoting them. Um, Understand that also the big buzzword is microdosing, where there may be benefit in taking the lowest dose possible. Not everything is going to be solved by microdosing, and there are no studies yet on microdosing. So it's an assumed thing that just because you're going to you're getting some benefits and less side effects because you're taking a lower dose. And we don't know that for a fact. It's all kind of anecdotal based on how patients feeling and what the labs are showing. So we're getting some evidence individually, but again, we just don't know if it's everybody's getting those benefits. Do we need to dose differently for a man versus woman, or with people of different sizes? So it's a little bit definitely the wild, wild west out there right now. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever going to get resolved in this case. I think things may be too far gone, but be careful who you're getting information from, be careful where you're getting product from, and then understand if you are getting it quote unquote compounded, that they're not all the same. The quality could be huge, there could be toxins, there could be lead or heavy metals in there. You don't know. And then a lot of times, some have been tested as like 5% of the active medicine in there. So you could be like a triple whammy there. So definitely buyer beware.
Before we continue, I want to share something deeply personal. The real reason my family started Nava Health. Over a decade ago, my mom was on her deathbed. Her organs were failing, and the doctors told us there was nothing they could do except keep her comfortable. In that moment, everything changed. We realized traditional medicine had limits, especially when it came to proactive and preventative root cause medicine built for long term health span and lifespan. At Nava Health, we take a data driven precision approach to longevity. We test over 90 biomarkers to uncover exactly what's happening inside your body, and we build a personalized plan designed around your unique biology. Because fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, they're not random, they're signals. And when you listen, your body can heal. This is functional longevity medicine done right, comprehensive, proactive, and built to help you feel and perform your best at any age. Go to navacenter.com and take control of your health today. Now back to the show. Yeah. No, I think that's something, as I'm sure you educate patients every day. We have to educate as well because, everything is available on your phone and on the web these days. Everyone, hops on, social media as if they're experts and selling the latest and greatest product. But it just because of where the peptide space is, and because there's not a lot of regulation around the specific products right now. And like you said, who knows if it's going to get any better because the cat's out the bag. it is super important to make sure that you are working with a provider. You are working with an individual who knows what they're doing to be able to customize that, the protocols or the products, and to safely monitor, as you're going through it, right? Someone who actually knows what they're doing, and can make that personalization for you, because not everybody's the same. Everyone's going to have different, optimal levels, different, different dosages needed. And at the end of the day, it's still medicine, right? It's still something that it takes a lot of time and experience, that people like yourself, who went to, spent their whole life with studying. So I do think that buyers need to beware. It's you know Joe Schmo on Instagram, might sound educated, but you never know, right? So it's just being safe and being cautious as you're going through that. I think that's super important. Um, so to kind of move to the next point of the bio age, right? How we can impact. Are you using any type of biological age calculator or simulators in your practice today?
I get that a lot, and it's diminished
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons at this point. We do use them. I mean, I use more, sometimes we're using more what are called organ age testing, which is very more specific to specific organs. Um, we do use, I mean, biological age. It's a nice screening test. It gives us some data points. I mean, and usually if somebody's unhealthy, their biological age will be higher than their chronological age, which is the age of the calendar. Or if they're pretty healthy, it may be lower. So at least it kind of lines up. Um, but we just have found that those tests aren't really ready for prime time anymore. That
Yeah.
you do those tests once a week or once a month, and there's people who've done the same test 3 times in one day, and they got totally different results. So if that's what happened, again, there's different reasons that could happen. So I mean, you can't say that it doesn't work no matter what, but
Yeah.
it's a trend. And if you're doing a biological age test, you want to get other factors along with it. And there are some tests that do that. They'll look at your genetics, or they'll look at your metabolics, or which are metabolites, or it'll look at your immune system. They look at other things, and they'll give you a biological age. So at least you're getting kind of two or three of the price of one. Doing just a strict biological age test, at this point, I do warn patients. Say, look, it's not the holy grail. It's informative. It does kind of back up. Again, it can usually kind of back up. Are you doing what you need to do? Is your body, is that showing, or do we need to do more to kind of improve your health span?
Yeah. No, I think we're in the same boat, right? It's still far from, like you said, it's not the holy grail, right? But it can be used as a tool to help lead clients, whether or not what they're doing is working or what it's not, right? um, to where it can at least give you guidance and a gauge of just where you're at. It's not something that you should be following to the T, but something that, if you are starting a protocol, whether a gut health protocol or hormone protocol, to see what type of impact that it is having, if it is reducing some of those biomarkers that are able to impact that calculation. For a consumer, like if I'm putting my consumer hat on, um, just having that little bit of reward of saying, okay, I'm putting in all this effort and all this work, and I am able to see that down. I think that's kind of where it becomes useful. It's kind of becoming like gamifying it to make it more interesting to do the right things, and being healthier, knowing that it's going to have some sort of impact long term for my health. Um, and then I kind of think that's kind of where bio age is right now.
No, I agree. It's kind of it's an assessment tool, but it's not the holy grail that people were making it out to be a year or two ago.
Yeah. And then what about there's a lot of things that people are talking about in the bio age or longevity space, as guides and best predictors. Where do you fall on the HRV scale?
It's useful. It's helpful. I mean, it definitely gives an assessment to our nervous system, which is definitely a part of our overall health. Um, but and again, I just have these conversations every day. Is if your HRV is high, that's a good sign, but it doesn't mean it's everything. And I have patients who do everything under the sun, are very healthy, and they still have low HRVs, no matter how much they do, especially as they get older. So just because you have a low HRV doesn't mean that you're doing everything wrong. Um,
Right.
I look for make sure there's flexibility or that there's volatility in it, that you're not flat, that you're going maybe 20 in the morning, but when something comes up, you can go to 60 or 70. Then I'm not as concerned as if somebody who just stays flat at 20 or 30 all day. Um, so that's a little bit of a different story too.
Yeah. And then, you talk about flexibility. I think one of the biggest things is, there's making sure that people have some sort of, metabolic flexibility. So, in simple terms, why would you say metabolic flexibility, or what would you say is one of the strongest predictors of aging and performance? Like, what would you say is one of the strongest predictors of aging or predictors for performance?
I mean, in terms of predictors of aging, I mean, it's a combination of things. It's a combination of inflammation. You can look at somebody's sugar or insulin, fasting insulin levels, and that should be helpful. Their grip strength, their muscle mass, their VO2 max are all going to be good indicators of kind of where they are on the spectrum in terms of overall health as they get older. Then you again use other lab tests as well. We're looking at, I mean, sometimes it's something as simple as like a uric acid or triglyceride ratios are all going to give us an idea of where they are. Um, then we're going to get other testing done. We can assess their mitochondria. We're going to look at their cellular health. So all these different things are going to give us pieces of their overall health.
When clients are coming to you and wanting to get started, what's some of the baseline? I'm sure you're doing comprehensive lab work. What's that baseline comprehensive panel look like for you?
I mean, it's a lot. I mean, again, I mean, when I see somebody, and again, it seems to be as the year comes up, everybody's talking about like what they want to run next year. But as we're filming it, so it there's a core, and then there's add-on depending on a lot of different factors. I mean, we're definitely doing a comprehensive biomarker panel that's usually best accomplished by doing basic lab work, do your LabCorp request, and then adding some other testing in through either some specialty labs that are out there would be the perfect combo. I mean, that's number one. The second thing, I mean, that's really the main thing that I'm looking at on a like a yearly basis. I will tend to do metabolite testing as a simple way as
And are you doing like a metabolomics with like a Genova?
I don't use Genova. I don't know if we use name brands or not. I use Therium, Iolo. There's different tests out there now that we use, and they all have different. A lot of these companies have different metabolites, so it's still kind of like, and as I actually had the conversation with them, it's kind of like herding cats because yeah, okay, do I want these 50 or do I want these 30? Do I get actually have patients do both tests? So it's kind of annoying for patients at this point, but they do provide useful information. I'm having patients get DEXA scans at least once a year, optimally twice a year. Looks at muscle mass or fat. That's something that I have everybody do. I like my patients to do at least one VO2 max every 2 years to look at their exercise capacity. It's not, I mean, those are the tests that I'm always doing. If they do have heart issues, they're getting a heart test done every other year at least a CAT scan, if not a clearly. Again, if patients, I have my patients do a toxin test usually at least once a year, if not twice a year, and then everything else is kind of more individual at this point. I mean, not everybody needs a stool test. I have my patients do genetics usually one off, and then obviously we don't need to do that again. Um, and I mean that's kind of, again that's kind of the core stack, and then we kind of mix and match from there.
Yeah. So comprehensive labs, metabolites, DEXA scan, VO2 max, is kind of what you're saying your core would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to us a little bit about DEXA scan, right? Obviously, that's something that's also become more popular recently. What's the importance of doing a regular DEXA scan Are you looking at bone mass? Are you looking at just overall composition?
And we're looking at, I mean, it depends on the patient, obviously. If we're doing the menopausal female, we're looking at obviously more of their bone mass, the most important thing. The second thing is their muscle mass, because muscle is one of the biggest organs of aging in general. Those are the most common things that we look at. Then we're also looking at their visceral fat, which is the fat around the organ, which are the main three things that we're looking at by looking at the DEXA scan. I mean, we don't usually do the bone component if they're in their 20s or 30s. We're usually switching to other things.
Yeah. If you have a patient that where you are seeing the visceral fat around the organs, um, obviously there's, basic things that are should be the first intervention, like diet and exercise, but what would be the interventions that you would want to recommend and intervene with someone who you have seen that has the visceral fat around their organs?
I mean, there's a couple of things. Obviously, first thing we're looking at lifestyle. I mean, that's exercise, diet. That's the first thing. Sleep, and then we look at medications. That could be diabetic medication. That could be things like the GLP-1s. Um, Sometimes testosterone, or we're just trying to deal with other markers that we're seeing in their lab work.
Obviously, especially for women's health, and obviously the new FDA ruling removing the black box warning was a huge win for women's health. Utilizing the DEXA scan to be able to track and monitor, bone mass and bone density is huge. And obviously we've seen the impact that not having the access or the ability to intervene with hormone replacement therapy, just how detrimental and how much of an impact that's made, on the generations that missed out on that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing that now, unfortunately, and hopefully now we can hopefully resolve that.
Yeah. No, of course. So, we've talked about, peptides. We've talked about mitochondrial health. One thing that is also stepping into the healthcare space is, the AI world. How are you utilizing AI, if you are utilizing AI to help you on a day-to-day basis and with recommendations, and how do you view AI impacting the healthcare space?
I mean, the last one, I mean, it's going to take over a lot of it. Right now, it's not ready for prime time yet. It's going to help. It's going to affect everything. It's affecting drug discovery. I mean, there's medicines, there's AI programs looking for meds that we already have and anti-aging benefits. But that's part of it. It's affecting how we can efficiently go through much more data much easier, but still not ready for like nobody's done it really in a great way yet. It's still kind of you've used five different things to get there. We can also
Yeah.
eventually have agents that can say, hey, this can you pull up this report? Can you make this report have all the data I just put in there? Or can you find me the best medicine for this? So that's coming. And then that's all good if used correctly. The downside right now is that patients are going on ChatGPT or Gemini and whatever their AI platform is and typing in I have this or I have that or here are my labs or how she does my peptides and it's just not accurate yet completely.
Yeah.
So that part is not great. I mean, I tell patients look at the sources. I mean, because it doesn't think for itself completely yet. If you gotta look at the sources, so if it's pulling up these spa websites from wherever as their main information, that's not always going to be accurate. If it's pulling out studies from JAMA or Harvard Medical School or something, then that has probably a little more credence to it. You have to look where the information is coming from because right now AI is all just plot on just picking from the most popular sites that are out there or the most popular magazines, which don't always have the most accurate information. So you got to take it with sometimes with a pound of salt. So I think it is great for studies like we're finding it in terms of brain scans for cancer, for heart testing. That's much more ready for prime time. Very specific niche things is really where it's good in terms of the big picture, it's not always as good. It's coming, and again, obviously, it's going to eventually. They're saying there'll be AI primary care doctors to fill in the blank was because not enough of them. I mean, that's technically probably where we're headed in some point. Um, but again, it's like anything else with AI is you got to use it for good and not understand what it is and use it for good and not evil.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's only as good as the inputs that are put into it. Which obviously there's still so much to learn about AI and how to leverage it. But I do think it's an exciting time and an exciting future. Where you're not where it needs to be right now, but just the opportunity and ability that it'll have over the next 3, 5, 10 years, um, to be able to reduce the risk of medical errors, which obviously is one of the top leading causes of death. To be able to help step in and fill and bridge some of those gaps. um, but also, I think it's funny because you were talking about how now people are just going on to Chat GPT, right? First it was Doctor Google, now it's Doctor Chat GPT or Doctor Gemini. Um, no, but I 100% agree, right? People need to use it as a tool, as a guide if they are doing it. Um, it's unfortunate, like there are some doctors' office, right, where it does take months to get on their books, and people are looking for answers and looking to have access. So, I'm very interested and curious to, see really, where that goes and just how fast that industry is moving. I think, I think it's, hopefully we're able to use it for a lot more good than bad, in the coming years.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely gonna be even better and better and better. It's just again it takes time.
Yeah. So, but before we start wrapping up the show, I just want to ask a few questions. Like I like to end the podcast just asking a few simple questions. Um, you've dedicated your life's work to, medicine. What would you say is your purpose and your why to doing what you do?
I mean, it's twofold. It's really the fact that I've dealt with issues before in the sense of medical and had initially didn't really get any answers on certain things. So that's how I found peptides initially. So I think again, a lot of doctors or health providers will say that's kind of a personal issue or battle has kind of led them there. And the other half is, again, I think kind of like you said in the intro, is I like how again I was at an event yesterday. I kind of felt the same thing. Is that I've somehow become a tour guide in a lot of situations for people, and that sound I don't know that may sound cocky. It's just the fact of people like I can again translate. Okay, this is what's real. This is what's not real. This is what you should be doing. And then again, I've also have developed over well. You can read people. I mean, there's some people who are gonna. I mean, if you have a Brian Johnson type, for lack of a better word, they want to do everything, and that's fair as long as they're on board with it and they understand the plus and minuses to it. And you also have the person who only wants to do one thing at a time, and they don't. Then that's also fine. So you can kind of again give them the broad strokes of what's going to work for them because you don't want to give the wrong plan to the wrong person because you just spin your wheels and don't get anywhere. So I think it's using using the power for good and not evil. What I'm going to give patient one is not what's going to be applicable to patient two, and that's what also makes the journey fun. Is that it's not where I was doing family medicine, where here's your Z pack, here's your Z pack, here's your Z pack, and that was that was the kind of the Groundhog Day effect.
Yeah, no, of course. And then, lastly, when it's all said and done, what would you like your legacy to be remembered by?
Wow. Okay, that's heavy. It's kind of the same stuff. I mean, I want to be. I mean, I've taken patients. I mean, I still do some of it. Patients who have seen 20 doctors before and not felt better and not even had an answer, and I can provide that to them. So I would love that. I like the fact that again, I can kind of provide patients answer, kind of give patients the right direction, even if it's not from me. If I can go say, why don't you do this test or go see Doctor So and So, that they're getting better. It doesn't have to be me. I mean, I had a patient about a month ago who's high up, very well known, and it wasn't me, but I said, okay, maybe you should go do this and this, and they found an answer. So I feel very fulfilled in that. Again, it wasn't me who did the final piece of it, the big piece, but I led them on their journey. So that's kind of the most satisfactory part of it, of doing it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's, exactly it, right? It's, um, making an impact, making a change, where, you're able to, giving without expecting anything in return, right? Not, and even if it meant that someone else is able to help somebody, that like you just had, right? I think, it's super powerful. It's super meaningful, and I think the world needs more of that, right? We live in such a fast paced life, and people are constantly looking for, if they put in input, they're looking for an output. But I think more people just need to be open minded about it. It's give without looking for something to come back to you. So
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
But Neil, this was amazing. I appreciate the time. Thank you for giving people clarity on the science. The hope for what's possible, and just a roadmap of where they're able to start, and having just more knowledge. I think it's critical. Of reason why I started this platform was to help get bring more voices to the space. Obviously you've been a huge voice in the space already, and I think just the more people that we can come and bring to the table to help amplify that, there's better ways to aging, right? It's not the traditional model. It's not reactive, it's being proactive, it's being preventative, because that's the difference of living well versus living sick. So I thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Oh, look forward to it. Had a great time. Would love to do it again.
Of course. If today's conversation sparked something in you, here's what I want you to do right now. Pick one strategy, one insight, one small action you heard today, and commit to it this week. Excellence isn't built in moments, it's built in the daily decisions that compound over time. Remember, you're not just building a healthier body or a more successful career, you're building a legacy that will outlast you. And that starts with the standards you set today. Thanks for listening to the Legacy and Longevity Podcast. If this episode was valuable, first subscribe so you never miss an episode. Then leave us a review to help more people find these conversations. And finally, share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. Until next Tuesday, keep raising the bar, keep pushing your limits, and keep stacking days. I'm Zach Dancel. Your legacy starts now.